DiscCount Podcast.
Welcome in, you cheap beggars, to Discount, the bargain bin gaming podcast, hosted by three little people. Yes, people so small that you can't see them from space.
Can we use the word little people?
I think I have. Welcome into Season 2, Episode 1. Woo! Don't mind me, I'm just stapling my arm back together for the 16th time. I'm your host, Josh, and plugging into Player 2.
Wandering around an abandoned police station, and then doing it again, but as a girl this time. I'm Darren, hello. And perched upon her throne of bargain bin DS games...
It's just me. I'm a boulder-punching asshole. It's Cerys.
Hello, yeah, and welcome back. We're here, Season 2. It's been a long old break, and all I can say is, God, Paul, what happened to you? You used to be sexy.
I mean, listen, I can't explain what's happened, but I feel real good about it.
For those of you not following us on social media, you may not be aware, but Paul lost last season, so he was banished to the Netherrealm.
He's gone.
He's gone. No, Paul had other commitments. He might be gone. He might be off to Sweden. Who knows where he's going? Yeah. He's disappearing. Basically, he's gone. He's not here.
For those who don't know, Sweden is the Netherrealm.
It is the Netherrealm. Or the Netherrealm.
Oh my god!
I wouldn't try that. You feel good about it.
You thought about it. But basically,
I did.
Paul's gone. So we have brought in a person who's been spoken about quite a few times by myself. It's Cerys.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
So, Cerys, why do you want this job?
I'm very respectable, well-spoken, and hardworking, and I hope you'll employ me.
So you're nothing like Paul.
I'm exactly like Paul. I'm just a great liar.
Yeah, so Cerys has joined us. The wife has joined, and we are still continuing as we were planning on doing before. But it's great to have Cerys on. If you do want to find out more about Cerys, come check out our social media where there's a whole get to know us section.
Yes.
But if they aren't interested in social media, because it can be a chore,
Yep.
do you want to give a bit more about who you are, what you like, and why you game?
What you are.
What are you?
What am I? A
What have I
boulder
agreed-
punching asshole. I explained this.
I agreed to marry her, and I forgot to ask what she was.
I'm Cerys. I am 31, and how do you start these? I'm a Leo rising. I started gaming when I was a kid with my dad, and it was something that was like I said this on social media if you follow us, but like my mum was horrified by the games that we would play because we would primarily play things like Doom and Quake, and my mum was like, "You shouldn't be shooting people at 5 years old." I loved it. And it kind of just carried on from there. I started gaming by myself. Oh my God, how lonely. I just really enjoy it.
That could be quite triggering to a lot of listeners who are lonely gamers.
It's okay, I'm right there with you.
I feel like we all started gaming being lonely.
Yep.
And then just found other gamers.
Yeah, I don't know. What if there's anything else you want to know?
I just thought I'd just give you a chance to go, I love Resi, and
I do, and I feel like I should warn every listener that I will bring Resi up at any given opportunity that I can. I will not be stopped.
But I think it's fair to say that you may be the least experienced gamer of the three of us.
Fair to say, very accurate, yes.
But you're looking forward and eager to expand your gaming knowledge and acumen and just play more games.
That was probably the answer I should have gone with, rather than I'm respectable, well-spoken, and I hope you employ me. Yeah,
so you've actually failed the interview, hasn't she, Darren?
Yeah. I have.
I'm worried
I am.
I'm worried the path you're going for is I want to learn more about gaming. You come to us with our fucking eclectic tastes. Like, Jesus.
I think I just want to branch out because I only ever play the same 3 games. So
this is the way to do it. But yeah, we are here. We're back. There are going to be some just general changes to how the podcast is going to be working. So we are coming back for every 2 weeks. There will be an episode, but it will not always be our competition. We are still going to be just looking at cheap games, but we're going to be doing a freebie thing. So we'll be looking at all the PlayStation free games, our ratings, and then also, which one we think we should go for, and just talk about free talk on those ones and some gaming news. But the idea is look at cheap games, give you things, and also not stress ourselves out by trying to get a game to us every 2 weeks and have enough time to play it.
Yeah, splitting out the structure of the recordings a bit. So like before we do, hello, it's us, here's what we played, here's the competition. Instead, we split it out into, here's the competition if you don't want to listen to
Us, Natter.
Was it Jump Force?
Jump Force for the 16th time, yeah.
And here's the other one if you do, because you clearly don't have enough podcasts in your life.
never can have too many podcasts. But that's the idea. We're trying to make them a bit shorter, a bit more condensed, but a bit more focused on what people may want. And it also means that you are going to get it all year round. We're not even going to be taking breaks is the idea. So this is a continual thing forever. And there will definitely be punishments at the end of this one. I think our punishment of murdering Paul was a bit rough, really.
I feel like the punishment of making him leave the podcast was actually probably best for him.
To be honest, he won.
He lucked out, yeah.
He might have won the podcast.
Just outright won the podcast.
Won the podcast, he left. He got to escape. He didn't have to do this anymore.
He saw the bright light of day.
But that's all the sort of things that are happening, that are changing. Also, the other bit is that we are now going to be on YouTube. So if you want to see what Cerys looks like, our new host, or you want to gawp at me and Darren like animals in a zoo, you now can.
Why you would?
But it's
God.
Everything is DiscCount Pod. So just look at DiscCount Pod, and you should find us on our various platforms and things. I don't think there's anything else I'm missing.
Probably not. We'll be around. What are we on? Instagram.
Yeah.
Instagram's our main thing.
It is our main thing.
We all have like separate Instagrams as well if you ever want to just catch up with what we are doing outside the podcast in terms of gaming. It's really easy. We're at DiscCount Cerys, DiscCount Josh, and DiscCount Darren.
DiscCount 2 C's.
You can watch Josh and I finish Ape Escape within like the span of a week of each other.
It was a painful time.
Yep.
Those damn dirty apes.
That's what Cerys is learning. Ape Escape.
I am learning that apes are bad.
Yep, they escape.
They do escape.
They're tricksy like that.
But don't worry, Spike is there. Hi, I'm Spike. Anyway, should we move back on and relook at what happened last year by looking at the last Vault game we should be adding in?
Absolutely.
Ready to open the Vault, Darren? Ready to open the Vault?
Let's go.
Well, better make some Vault noises, otherwise I can't open the door. Now, I should have thought about this a lot, beforehand, and brought the winning game and the 3 games, then we could throw the other 2 away like yesterday's jam.
We're now recording somewhere with a balcony, so we could be real extra about it and just frisbee them.
Yeah, just
gone.
Nothing for you.
And one of them would deserve it.
That's real cruel. But yeah, no, that's fair enough. So the last episode we did was horses, which actually came out on our wedding day.
It did, yes.
So everyone lost that day. And but
this first episode is going to end in divorce.
It's a good start.
It is. Got to get the fighty energy ready for it. But there were 3 games for horses, which were Red Dead Redemption 2, Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Shadow of the Colossus. 3, I suppose, titans of gaming. Like they are very much. You could ask someone, and it wouldn't be shocking if they said that's my favorite game of all time.
Yeah, we had a lot of episodes where there was either like a clear front runner or there were a lot of good games. But this one was especially like, if you went up to people and said these 3 games, they'll be like, oh yeah, those are all like top at least 15, 20 probably.
Definitely. I mean, I've played all 3, you've played all 3.
Yeah.
You have not.
I haven't. The only one that I've played is Red Dead Redemption 2.
Which was our winner of that. Yeah, I just thought I'd pretend.
Just look like you crowned your tablet. I don't know what was going on.
I was pretending to bring out the game to put it in
I
front
love
of
that
me.
you made it seem like it was real heavy too.
It's a dense game. There's a lot
Game,
of it.
yeah.
But yeah, it was Red Dead Redemption 2. It won, I would say, landslide, was like 2/3 of the votes went to Red Dead Redemption 2, as voted for by the listeners and ourselves, furiously going for other ones. Darren, how do you feel about that?
Not good. my boy Shadow of the Colossus. I thought I deserved it. But
Second place.
I'm not mad. I'd be more mad if Breath of the Wild won.
Yeah,
I'm glad that got the last place it deserved. But
we're a weird pod that doesn't like Zelda, but I think a lot of people are moving more into that opinion now.
The thing about it is, I think there was, at the time it came out, nothing quite like it. And it was, especially because it came out on the heels of people feeling a bit sort of disenchanted, I suppose is the word, with the Zelda series in general. So then this thing came out and it had all the characters they loved, but this whole beautiful new thing. And everyone immediately proclaimed it the best thing to ever happen to gaming.
Yeah.
And then more games came out, and everyone went, "Oh, maybe it isn't." Which I'm glad people came around because it's a. I will say I don't hate the game. It's a superb physics sandbox. But a superb physics sandbox, a good game does not make.
If you want to hear more about Darren's distaste towards Zelda Breath of the Wild, check out our last episode, Horses.
Or just ask me on social media and I will...
Yeah, he will go on
I will lecture you until the sun goes down and comes back up again.
I mean, in fairness, I was actually, really quite surprised that when we did a Get to Know Us post on DiscCount Pod, and we asked for unpopular gaming opinions, and it turns out that people not liking Zelda is actually not an unpopular opinion. I think we had 3 or 4 people say that they agreed with the fact that they didn't like Zelda.
Love you guys.
Having never actually controversially played a Zelda game before, I was quite surprised by that because I honestly thought that everybody loved Zelda.
I do love Zelda. I love old Zelda.
I see.
I
Okay.
love what I would call middle-aged Zelda.
Middle-aged Zelda, yeah, I think that's fair. Ocarina of Time, Forest Mars.
3D space from I like Skyward Sword though, so I'm weird.
Well, no, but I agree. That is weird.
Ocarina of Time Up the Skyward Sword is my jam.
Is that the Wii one?
Yes.
With the wolf?
That's Twilight Princess. That's also good.
Yes.
Wind Waker's the best one though.
Okay. Yeah, Wind Waker is.
Don't at me, boys.
Yeah.
Or do. I'm right.
Ocarina's the best one.
No.
Ocarina's the best one. Then Majora's Mask.
It's good. What would you say is third?
You're gonna hate me.
Okay.
It's Breath of the Wild for me.
Okay. I would say Wind Waker, Majora, Ocarina, and then it's sort of.
Yeah,
I would have to think harder about it.
But I think I like Ocarina for the same reason I like Assassin's Creed 4. A lot of sailing. Like a little bit of sailing.
Ocarina has no sailing in it.
Does it not?
No.
Oh, I'm thinking of the wrong one now. Which is the one?
Has some lovely horse times.
It does have lovely horses. Well, we're not talking about horses anyway. But Red Dead Redemption 2 won the Vault. You're pleased about that? Because
I am, yeah.
You've got good taste.
Yeah, I really like that game.
I'm not unhappy about it.
I would happily go through it again. You're
I will.
Yeah, because you want that gold.
I do.
You want that platinum trophy.
I do.
But you know what, guys? Let's stop talking about the past. The past is dead. So let's close the vault. Let's close the vault and move on to our next game. Oh, that is a creaky vault. Karis, you need to start oiling it.
Whoa.
Yeah, come check us.
Where are we going with this?
Yeah, come check us out on YouTube. But yeah, oil that door, intern. And let's go and look at what we will be discussing for this episode. We're by jumping into the genre. So, we obviously didn't have a reveal at the end of the last one. There was talk we might go, let's do massive RPG, but we didn't know where we were going, what was happening with the podcast, and obviously it's been a bit of a wait. So we pulled our own one. Well, actually, we sort of looked at the categories, to be completely honest, looked at the categories and went, when are we coming out? We saw we were going to be starting in October, and we thought, let's go into the spooky season and go with survival horror.
Yeah, boy.
Which is always fun. But I don't know if you know what survival horror is, Kara, so we'll just confer with our expert.
Yeah, sure.
Darren, what is survival horror?
It's horror where you survive.
Excellent.
I'm going to be honest, more often than not, you're not surviving in survival horror. It's normally a lot of death.
Well, then it's not a good survival horror, is it?
That's true. That's true.
I mean, really, the best survival horror is life, because it's the horror of surviving.
Oh, that is deep.
Yeah.
That is deep for a
Yeah,
second.
like a puddle. Well, that's sort of you're saying a walking simulator could have won, really.
I mean, it could have. Depends what the walking simulator is.
Well, what remains of Edith Finch?
The real winner would be Animal Crossing, like any of the fun animal whimsy. It's just you walking around an island, I don't know, just chopping trees and shit.
Didn't they have that on a PS Plus game the other month, where you literally just are stranded on an island and you have to sort of like survive?
Yeah, and I think that game's just sort of fine.
Yeah, it is.
Stranded Deep, innit?
Yeah, that's it. Stranded Deep. That's the name of the thing. Don't play it.
That's our recommendation for the week.
That is
Stranded Deep.
our recommendation. So, with this one, we decided to all buy for each other. So we all went to the left, as it were, on here, and bought for another person, which is how we're going to be going forward in this season. The idea is we're always buying for someone else until our final week, where we have to fight to survive. As we just think it's more fun not knowing what we're going to get.
And if it's close at the end and we all have to buy for ourselves, our failure just rests in our own heads, which is more fun.
That is true. And as is tradition, as the gods have said, we will go by whoever got their game first for survival horror. So the first person to receive their game was Darren, who got bought a lovely little ditty from me.
I did. I got a lovely game from Josh. It was hand-delivered to me by a friend of the podcast. But,
Rach. Oh.
My game for this week is the lovely...
Oh, nice sounds.
Alan Wake Remastered. I'll pop that there.
Nice. Alan Wake Remastered for the PS5.
For the PS5, yeah. Alan Wake originally... Did Alan Wake come out on the PS3? I know it was the Xbox thing.
I know it was on Xbox 360. That's when I played it originally.
I think it might have been like a big Xbox exclusive kind of deal.
It could very well have been.
Alan Wake, of course, by Remedy.
Yep.
Known for Control more recently.
Yep.
But also apparently did Max Payne.
Yes.
I didn't know they did Max Payne until you said it to me.
Yeah, and then you look at Alan Wake and go, that looks very Max Payne-y.
But yeah, Alan Wake. We'll go into Alan Wake.
Yeah, what happens in Alan Wake?
What happens in Alan Wake?
Inform us.
Alan Wake is a game about Alan Wake, the writer. He is a horror writer. I think he's alluded to be similar to sort of a Stephen King kind of deal. Mm-hmm. And he goes to this town called Bright Falls, essentially on a retreat with his wife, to try and write his new book. He's doing some writing, and they go out to this cabin in the middle of a lake, and things get spooky.
Ooh.
And
horror-y coming in. Oh.
Basically, through little trips of flashback and little trips of what you see, his wife is in the lake. Alan has crashed his car somewhere far away, and the cabin is not there. It's as if the cabin never existed in the middle of the lake. And from there, you basically follow a very unhappy Alan Wake as he tries to work out what the fuck is going on, basically. What is happening? Why is all of the things going bad? And also, there's this... It's called the Dark Presence, is what it's called. But essentially, this evil force that's taking over the town and fucking shit up.
I feel Alan Wake's a little like you in this game. Like, I imagine you just... Because he seems just a bit just put out by the whole situation. Yeah. I imagine if you were meant to be going on a trip in your car, you crash your car, and you're like, another thing's not here. Oh, God, I've got to just get on with my life, have I?
Like, it's sort of a 50-50 deal, where some of the times Alan Wake's a bit of an arsehole, so he causes his own problems. And the other time, you go to speak to a woman who has clearly been brainwashed, and then you come out to, like, she lives in a trailer park, and you come out to the front gate of the trailer park, and the fucking FBI's there, and he's like, you're going to pay for what you did to her. It's like, he clearly didn't do anything. How could he brainwash this woman? That is not within...
With his torch?
Yeah, that is not within the remit of a writer. So there's, I would call it two main types, three, we'll call it, phases of this game. There's bits in the day where you're just walking around talking to people, all the lovely folks of Bright Falls. You meet sort of the various people from the sheriff's office, you meet the local doctor, and you sort of go to a local cafe, you meet the waitress there, and that's who they go to talk to who's been brainwashed. And then the other two take place at night. You have like puzzle solving bits where you'll go around trying to, maybe you'll activate bits of machinery to move some stuff around. There's a bit I did quite recently where you have to get to a power switch over a dam. You have buttons. It's just buttons, turn one on, turn one off, and you have to get across. All simple sort of stuff. The third part is the combat, which is you have your torch, you have your gun. You need to shine your torch on them until they are basically stunned. They're shadows, and then the torch makes them physical, makes them real, and then you can shoot them.
If I remember, the torch has a set battery
it
on
does.
it, does it? And is it almost like it's movement based? So you have, or is it a time based recharge?
So it's this is actually a really cool thing on the PS5 version, because the PS5 controllers have the adaptive triggers.
Yeah.
So you have torch and then you have super torch.
Oh,
right, that's
nice.
cool.
And both drain it very slowly, but super torch drains it faster. So you have like a slight bit for the torch, a bit more for the super torch, and then you have your batteries, so you just put more in as it runs out.
I like it when people actually utilise what the PS5 has.
It's cool. It's really cool to see it whenever it happens. So, Alan Wake. I don't know how I feel about this game. I really don't. Because I was going through it, I played the 6 chapters. They're called episodes. The 6 episodes. I played the first one and was thoroughly underwhelmed. I played the second one.
So far with how this second
I played the second one, was further underwhelmed. I played the third one. I'm like, this is okay. This is maybe picking up a bit. I played the fourth one. The fourth one's great. Fourth one is awesome in all sorts of ways. And I played the fifth one. The fifth one's good, but not as good. It's better than fucking 1 to 3, but not as good as 4.
And you haven't played 6 yet?
I haven't played 6 yet. I don't know what's happening in this game. I don't know if they just, someone left their desk alone after they wrote the first 3, and then, a kid came along and went, yeah, and it's great.
I haven't played it in ages, but I remember it getting really good at the end, but I always found that early Remedy, I know Control is praised a bit weak, I think, writing-wise, in my opinion, but I think that might be the saves raise them. But I always thought that Max Payne and Alan Wake were really good sort of story-driven, telling things. I know you said a bit dry at the beginning, but but there's bits they're putting in place for it to pick up later.
I will say there's nothing wrong with the pacing of it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with the actual. Well, there's something wrong with the writing, but I'll get to that in a second. There's nothing wrong with the pacing and the world building and the actual story it's telling. That's all good. And now that it's unfolding a bit more, it is super cool. You've been like, oh, they mentioned that earlier and they brought that up and they hinted at this, but fuck, it's so dry. It's just not interesting to play the first bit. Well,
should we save a lot of that for the entertainment section? Because it sounds like I'm going to struggle this week.
But not bad, not great.
Not bad, not great. Fair enough. Should we move on to the next game that was received?
Absolutely.
I believe I was the next one to receive my game.
Yep, I believe so.
I got it from Cerys.
You did indeed.
Which was nice and easy to deliver because it's the same house.
Yeah.
So I received Fobia, St. Dinfna Hotel, which is actually pretty much a brand new game. It came out on June 28th this year.
That's cool.
So I'm not sure how Cerys is going to do with value for money at this point if it's a brand new game, but we'll see how that all plays out later on. But yeah, it's a survival horror game, it claims, but it's developed by Pulsatrix Studios and published by Maximum Games. They are a Brazilian studio from Sao Paulo. It's an independent title that's clearly been heavily influenced by Resident Evil, is how they put it together.
Oh, cool.
But it's really nice to see a independent game make it out and do quite well with it, because if I'm being honest, it's probably not even a double A title. It's
an A.
It's an A title. But they've obviously put a lot of love and care into the creation of this game. And it does show in what they've done. So the idea of this game is you are a writer, you're a journalist. And
trends.
And you're heading off to this area to investigate some spooky going on. This happens to be a hotel. And it's you working out what happened in the history. It's like time travel-y going on.
Okay.
It's very much, you have a camera which you can change, or you bring out the camera which changes how it looks. You bring out like a night cam, but also things aren't the same with the night cam as it is with just what you can see. You have a torch to get around to see things. You have a gun with limited ammo. It feels very similar to what's going on with Alan Wake, but it's much more closed in because you aren't just in a hotel, but the main character is, but sometimes you're other people and you're then in a building. It isn't open. You can't just sort of go where you want. And it very much is, you need to puzzle your way through to go up and down. Like the lift is what's going to take you to places. And for some reason, someone's stolen all the buttons off of the lift.
Oh, it's like Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yes, it is like Luigi's Mansion. And then you have to find the buttons to put it on. So there's
the best survival horror game I've ever played.
It is a solid game. It's not the best survival horror game that you've ever played. Behave yourself, Darren.
No.
But it's done well. Obviously, it is. I think it's. I was going to say Spanish, but it's Brazil's Portuguese. Portuguese initially, but so their mouths are moving that way, but it's dubbed over and they put the work in.
Okay.
But it doesn't take you out. It's okay voice acting in there, but its main focus is puzzling your way through, and then combat comes in a bit later, and it is shall we say, clunky, the combat. The combat is horrifically clunky.
Good.
The graphics are all right for what it is, but it's the sort of thing if someone had said, I've done some modding on like Half-Life 2 back in like 2010, it's that level. It's probably actually not 2010 might be too nice, but it's that sort of everything's a little sheeny. There isn't much movement in the face. Like Shrek outdoes it for face movements.
Yeah.
But it's a perfectly fine game. And I can see why a lot of people would love this game because it is a love letter to, again, the Resident Evil games like Fatal Frame, Outlast, stuff like that, where they've gone, here we are, and it was crowdfunded by people as well. So it's very much got the money and the backing from other people who wanted to see this being made. And its main emphasis is the story, which is unnecessarily confusing. But there's a reason for it. I say unnecessary, so it's necessarily confusing that you slowly reveal more things as you go through the game. But the idea is they definitely want you to play through the game about 3 different times, but you're not going to get much in the way of extra information.
Okay.
Is it one of those things where like you play through it that many times because you sort of want to pick up on?
No, you do it because that's how you have to do it to get the platinum.
Cool. Nice and Route 1, I like it.
You literally cannot... There's literally a trophy for playing the game 3 times. Like, it's as shameless as that. He goes, here you go, here's a gold trophy if you play through it 3 times for us.
So it's not a trophy that says, like, you will get, like, more information, or it's literally just play through it 3 times, why not?
You do get ability upgrades, and you cannot fully upgrade yourself until you've hit it the 3rd run through. So you then have more information you can sort of find, but you can pretty much find everything in a single run as well.
Okay.
I'd be more mad about that, but there's another game I've been playing recently which basically has the same trophy. It's much more subtle about it. It's like, get like all of the available things, and you get 3 of them per run through, and you need to get all 9.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, fuck you, play it 3 times.
Play it 3 times.
Oh.
But yeah, that was the first one. That's Cerys' first contribution to the podcast is Fobia St. Dinfna's Hotel, which is available on pretty much everything. And I got the PS5 version, is what you got me as well. It's available on every platform apart from Switch, I believe.
On most things.
Yeah, because it's Nintendo.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my one that I received. And Darren, you...
I did. Cerys, did you get a PS5 game?
I did not. No, I did not.
What did you get?
Got a PS3 game.
Ooh, retro.
And the game that I got was Dead Space.
Yeah,
classic.
Yeah, thanks for that, Darren.
Classic.
Darren came in strong to win this first episode, didn't he?
This was one of those ones where, so a lot of the behind the scenes, we'll call it research, that goes into the buying of games, is you go, right, this is the topic. I will type the topic into Google and see what it says. And I typed it in. It had like Silent Hill, which is too expensive, and Resi, which is too obvious, and then Dead Space. And I just stopped. And I went, cool. Yeah. That's the answer. That is the correct answer.
So, Cerys, Dead Space.
Okay, so I don't even know where to start with Dead Space.
Probably the beginning.
So, who made Dead Space?
So, Dead Space is made by EA. Or was it distributed by EA?
Distributed by EA, I'd imagine.
There we are.
I can't think of Dead Space.
It was EA Redwood Shores.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
So it was indeed developed by EA. I can't say EA. That is like horrible to say.
EAO.
Yeah. It was made and released in October 2008. So this is it's a PS3 game. It's old AF now. But oh my god, what a game. What a game. I'm not going to go into too much about like what I liked about it. I'll save that. But just to give you kind of a little insight into what Dead Space is about, the story in itself is actually quite complex. There's lots of different levels to it, but essentially what happens is you are an engineer that goes up to see a ship that has basically gone dark after an illegal mining expedition. At this point, humanity has completely kind of run out of resources on Earth, and we have managed to colonize other planets for their resources. At the same time, they kind of uncover this alien artifact called the Marker, and they try to make man-made copies of it called the Red Markers. the Ishimura, that goes into this mining expedition. They discover lots of red markers on this planet, and eventually it does end up turning the crew completely insane. They start having hallucinations, and on top of that, the marker reanimates corpses. So you end up with these things called necromorphs that are just horrific. Yeah. You play a engineer called Isaac who basically goes on a repair mission to also find out what happened to his partner, who is the chief kind of medical officer who was on the Ishimura. And when you get there, the entire ship has either been turned into a necromorph, or if they are not turned into a necromorph, they are having hallucinations and are slowly going insane. So you have to kind of survive both the crew and the necromorphs.
We've all been there. All been there. Yeah. Standard night out in Wales, really, isn't it?
It's weird. A different game it made me think of is... Josh, you've probably played it. Have you played Dead Rising?
I have played Dead Rising, yeah.
So it made me think of that, where it's like you're either dealing with the sort of faceless monsters, or you're dealing with people who have somehow managed to survive, but the experience overall means they are just as, if not more dangerous.
Yes, yeah. There are some genuinely spooky parts of this game where it's like, am I finding the necromorphs scary about this, or am I finding the fact that there is literally a nurse over there cutting open a corpse, like laughing? Like there are genuinely spooky bits all the way through it, due to both of these parties.
It's a synonymous game of like, this was an amazing game.
Yeah.
And there is a remake coming, isn't there, next year?
Yes.
January next year.
I'm excited.
Remake, and it's going to be great. And the people who make Dead Space are developing another game that's coming out later this year.
Indeed.
Callisto Protocol is made by the former team who made Dead Space.
Of course it is.
So
I'm very excited for that.
That looks sick. It looks so good.
There's nothing bad about space horror, is there? Space horror is great. I mean, I'm not saying that Darren's tried to like obliterate us by playing an amazing game to start off. But you don't want to go into if it's entertainment, but that's what Dead Space is. You go around shooting people, cutting off limbs, and having fun with it.
I will go into the combat of it a little bit more later on, because I actually think it's one of the most interesting things about the game.
Beautiful.
But yes, that is essentially it.
Cool. Well, that's our games. Does anyone got any like honourable mentions of games they were looking at potentially to buy? Do you want to mention them now before we get into doing it all?
I would like to say that finding a survival horror game at the moment that is actually physically able to be purchased, to find a physical copy, was a nightmare. I had so many like suggestions of games that I'd read reviews of, and people were like, this is amazing, this is incredible, the concept is awesome, it's really creepy, download only. No physical purchase.
There are so many categories where you go, oh, what's the good ones of this? Like, I remember our first episode, side-scrollers was a big problem for this. You're like, oh, what are all the good side-scrollers out at the minute? Oh, they're all indie titles that are digital only. Mm-hmm. Good.
So I'm glad you're experiencing the pain that we experienced about a year ago, and you're now understanding the problems.
Oh my god. I honestly underestimated like how difficult it would be.
It's hard.
I think the way to do it is probably, and you see a lot of people online are going to car boots and stuff like that. I think it might be the way to do it. But so difficult, but games wise that we couldn't get that were just not physical. What were the ones you were looking at?
At one point I was looking at a game called Madison, which is a survival horror which is told basically through a Polaroid camera. You take photos of things and they develop and they uncover more things about it. I don't know a huge amount about it. I just thought that the concept sounded really good, but again, it's fucking download only.
I don't know what the effect is. There's a name for it, where once you hear about something, you see it everywhere.
Yeah,
but we were talking about this.
I think it's called cookies.
You were saying like, oh, this was the game I was looking at, and I went, oh, okay. And since then, I've seen it everywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's something like the internet has picked up and run with as like, this is a great game. You should all play it.
In fact, I think I might be lying actually, because I think I said it was download only. I think part of the problem was that there was a physical copy, but it wasn't able to get to me for like a month. Yeah.
You see a lot of things like Devolver do a lot of them where you go, oh, we're doing it only digital, and then here's a physical copy, and it's 250 quid because it's the digital copy.
Yep.
Yes.
But I was looking at things like Outlast, but they only seem to do the trilogy now, which isn't as cheap, and you know.
I mean, to be fair, I've played 10 minutes of Outlast 2 and it traumatized me.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad you didn't give me that one.
I should have done that. And of course, he's mentioned Silent Hill games are impossible to get hold of. Amnesia, they don't have any physical versions of them. You know, there's all those sort of bits. And then you've got all the Resi games, which we've all played a lot of. Soma was the one I actually really wanted to get. But
Soma's alright.
But
I thought about cheating just buying Cerys 37 and just sort of closing the book on the episode before it even begins. But
God, I love that game.
No, every time I go, there's this great game that I know from like the PS2 era, and it was Silent Hill 2, which is like the most renowned survival horror game of all time. It's like, hey, you want it? You can have the remaster for 40 quid or the original for 200. I went, no, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And
the remaster isn't as good. No. And the reason the original was so good was because of the graphical limitations, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because they couldn't develop what was past the things. So things were just
a fog everywhere.
Yeah, it was great. So, we're all too friendly right now. Do you know what we need to be doing?
Fighting.
Fight.
Round 1, fight!
For those of you who couldn't see, during that bit of music, Cerys decided to literally punch her hand in a really aggressive manner.
I didn't punch my hand. I imitated a bitch slap is what I did. Like that.
I only saw it.
I was doing little punches.
And I was rolling my eyes because I think I'm better than everyone else, but I'm not at all.
You fight emotionally.
Yes, I go for where it hurts.
Darren, would we say that Josh is judgmental?
No.
And he'll judge us for saying so.
Yes, I will. First category for this is most accurate. So we're looking for survival horror. Anyone want to go first on what theirs are and say yes or no, really survival horror?
I'll go first.
Go for it.
I don't think Alan Wake is a survival horror game.
Okay.
Because I think it is lacking in what I would call horror exactly. I think it's a very good, in film there's the distinction, of course, between horror and thriller.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very good thriller. There's nothing about the game itself that I would say is particularly horrifying. And I don't know if it's because it's not meant to be or because they've had a vision and not executed it well.
Yeah, I think it's more meant to be almost like an existential dread is the idea, isn't it? Like sort of like a weight on you rather than here's a jump scare for you. Here's something it's very much...
It tries to do jump scares. They're really funny. Because you'll be walking along and... you'll be going through this dark area, dark forest or whatever, and the music will start ramping up.
Yeah.
You go, okay, combat's coming then. That's good. It's like when fucking cover shooters became a big thing.
Yeah.
And you'd walk into a room and it'd be full of chest high walls. You go, combat.
Yes. Good. You mean the classic Gears of War situation where you go, good, more brown blocks for me to hide behind.
But the game's near silent. There's a little bit of environmental noise and the music will pick up and you go, okay, combat's in a minute. And then it'll pick up more and you go, okay, combat in a minute. And then you walk into what's clearly the determined combat arena.
Yeah.
And it hits this fucking musical sting and pans the camera around in slow-mo, which is meant to be scary, but it's really funny because you'll be walking along and the game will go, oh, the horror, enemies.
But
all right,
that's the thing with Alan Wake I always found was because obviously it's episodes. It's trying to make itself feel like a TV episode or a film. So instead of it being but they do. I think they have a couple of nested cat scares where they you're meant to be jumping, but there's no cat there, or that is.
I will get to this more in the play of the game later. There is one point where it really executes that well. The idea of it's high-pitched musical sting and the turn and all of that. And at one point, it really does work.
Yeah.
But most of the time, combat's coming, and it's if the game's oh my god, you're so scared. I'm not, though. Alan, am I? I'm not fussed because combat's easy, and this is... all you've shown me is a human.
Yeah.
A slightly shadowy human speaking a voice that's clearly been lowered 3 octaves digitally.
It's not just me trying to level myself before the podcast.
But to be fair, they all say funny things as well relating to their job. My favourite one is someone hopped over a truck and went, "Fishing can be a career."
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Fucking laughed my ass off.
So really entertaining then.
It's very entertaining.
Not that I'm trying to lead up to later on to try and get something.
Come full circle on the first episode from last season. It's very sort of B-movie vibes.
Yes.
As in a B-movie and not the B-movie.
Yeah. What's the deal?
Yeah, it's bad. But it's just, I don't think it hits the horror mark, even though I can see on the back of the box now it says the horror story.
Yeah.
Like, it's trying to be a horror game, possibly, but it's more, as you say, like that creeping dread that then doesn't hit its promise of horror.
It's like some of some Stephen King novels are very much like that. Although they are horror, it's very much. I mean, I suppose it's similar to like The Shining, shall we say, in the idea that there's this thing just weighing down the whole time, and and ghosts again, and you're like, oh, this feels uncomfortable. You're waiting for that moment, which you might get in chapter 6, but right now it's not.
Yeah, it's like
for you.
Clearly, spooky shit is happening, but it's not really spooky enough to be like, oh my god, I need to work out why this is happening. Also, it's funny you mentioned The Shining, so I'll get to a complaint related to The Shining in entertainment.
Well, I'll move on to mine then, as we're talking about things that didn't scare me. This game.
So cutting.
Oh, good. I feel real good about my choice.
this game. It's clearly meant to be scary, and it's that idea. I'm in a hotel. There's always gone. You start off, and there's actually a really good moment at the beginning where you wake up in a cell, and you find your way out. You're finding these keys and getting bits that you need, and you step out of the door, and to your left, this big thing appears, and it looks very much like, I suppose, a mixture of the gas mask person from the Doctor Who episode, but much bigger, mixed with, I think it's Resi 8 with the propeller chest thing.
Oh, yeah,
It's like a mixture of that, and it's coming towards you, and it's just like, it goes, run, and you're like, okay, I'm off then. And you got a little bit of fear there, and then you're in a hotel, and you're just walking around, and then you eventually get a gun, and you get this. But at no point, and there's a little girl with a gas mask that just sort of runs around and appears at the corner of your eye, but after the first jump you get with that, you're like, oh, and here's another one with her. Oh, here's another one with her. You're like, this isn't doing anything for me now.
Yeah.
And then you see the creatures that you're meant to be killing, and they just look shiny, and they've got these like glowing chests, and they're sort of like stumbling towards you, and it just looks like a drunk man coming towards and you just go, you aren't scary. All you are frustrating because the guns don't shoot properly. So in the opposite way to yours, where you go, combat's really easy, combat's really hard in this because of how clunky the combat is. So you will probably die from it. But you aren't scared.
Yeah.
You're just frustrated by the moment. So it doesn't do the horror. I can see where it's going to, and it wants to feel like the original Resi, and I can get they got bits of that in there. It just doesn't quite hit home because, in the nicest way, I didn't care, and I think that's the problem.
Yeah,
I didn't care about the lead person to go, oh no, I'm scared. I'm in a different time. I'm going to die. Okay, die.
Yeah.
If I don't buy into it, I'm not going to get fearful from it. You know?
For sure.
So we'll say these two haven't done very well for that, but it is definitely horror. I would say this is definitely clearly horror, and there are survival elements to it. So I would say this is very clearly a survival horror game. It just didn't work for me. Whilst with yours, you feel like you won't die and you aren't scared.
I feel like it's a very sort of heavy thriller, intense environment sort of thing, and it is quite sort of that sense of emanating dread, but it never peaks over into horror.
Yeah.
It just stays at the dread level.
I get that, yeah.
Dead Space.
The good thing with this is very much resource management. So you are very much struggling. You've got a very limited, it's very much a Resi inventory where you've got to move things, drop bits
from the old,
boxes.
like the Resident briefcase.
Yeah, it's like the little briefcase, the little squares, you go moving them around to fit in. So you do have to very much manage it, and you go, here's 2 rounds of shotgun shells, best of luck with this. And because the shooting is so painful, you will waste your ammo, and you do feel that. So I think it does very much hit it. It's just, I wasn't scared, but I can get why people would be fearful in this.
Yeah. Right.
Go on, Dead Space.
Dead Space?
In a different vibe to you two, Dead Space is fucking terrifying. This is possibly the scariest game I have ever fucking played. Oh, cool. It is horrifying in so many different ways. It hits the horror mark real hard. From the jump, as in...
From the jump.
I didn't even start playing this game. I was really, it was loading, I put it up, and I went to put my phone on charging, naturally, because it's me, got distracted by something. Yeah, and that sounds before I even started the game, it went full pelt into this trailer for the game, and it started off so loudly and so intensely that before I'd even started playing the game, I'd shat myself. So that gave me a good indicator. But the actual game is terrifying. It's you are basically, because you are an engineer as well, like the guns that you get aren't actually guns, they are mining equipment. The combat is so different from anything I've ever played before, because for those of you who haven't played it, it's not like a regular survival horror where like you do a headshot and you're fine. You shoot these necromorphs in the head and you are dead, son. That is it, because you have to dismember them. And even if you think like, oh, well, I've shot his arm off, you're fine. Oh no, they will crawl towards you even if they only have like one arm. You have to totally dismember them. And that makes things a lot more tense, because there were a couple of times I forgot really about it and was like, yes, headshot, move on. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, great, I'm dead. I think quintessentially really what I'm getting at is Dead Space is what I believe survival horror should be to its very core. It's so scary. It has great resource management. You don't have a lot of ammo. You are isolated. Everything around you is fucked up. It's what I believe that it should be.
I agree that it's a great horror game.
Yeah.
I don't agree it's a great survival horror game.
Do you not?
I played Dead Space and I had no issue with it, resource management at all.
Oh,
I felt like I had far more than I needed ammo wise. And it's like, cool, do this, switch gun, move, do this. Yeah. I didn't have, when I played it, and this is not to, well, I'm getting combative anyway, but I'm just saying, I think it's potentially one of the best horror games that they've made. And I'm very excited for the remake, and I will do this. Yeah. And I will be fearful for it, and I will think, God, I'm going to die quite a lot. I just don't think, in my head, a survival horror should have a very stringent resource where I'm going to be like, all right, I have a choice of a key that I think I might need for a door, or this ammo to actually make it to said door. And I think that helps, especially with the way they don't really give you much in the way of maps here. You're running around trying to remember where you're going. Whilst that, I felt, I think is a great, in my head, is an action horror game.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that might be my differences on them. Yeah. On
I can see where you're coming from with that, because I will say I felt like it was really easy to get a second gun. Do you know what I mean? Like I had my mine cutter, and then I think I wasn't even like the second kind of chapter in before I'd had my second gun, and that was a little bit like, oh, okay, well, I feel a little bit more safe now. However, I would disagree on the ammo part, only because there have been a couple of big encounters I've had where I'm like, shit, I have nothing.
I think, and to be fair, I think it ramps up with that. I think it starts off thinner, and then you start, it's the same as any sort of, I suppose, any action game. It's that, oh, you don't have much, but now, but you get further in the game, you go, here you go, you have an arsenal. Best of luck surviving that.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the one thing I will say as well, and
the
maybe,
one other thing.
I could talk about this game for ages, but I think what Dead Space, from what you guys have said, does differently is that it nails the atmosphere as well. Like that you feel totally alone, but at the same time absolutely not alone, because there are things peering at you from vents, and there are like, you know, you're walking somewhere and you're really quiet, and all of a sudden like the steam will come out of the vent, and even in the bits that aren't as scary, like in your like zero gravity moments, which I have a bit of a bugbear about those moments that I'll go into another time. You have that sense of this, something could happen at any moment. I am never safe here.
Yeah. No, you know? It's like an Alien Isolation or something like that, where you, but in that sort of, I'm constantly fearful, but I think Alien Isolation is a bad example, because that is a true survival horror.
Yeah. I would have picked it if I hadn't already picked it.
So what we're saying is Alan Wake wins. Is that where we landed on here? I think that's where no. I'm going to say my point is actually going to go to Fobia first.
Would you want to, just for people who haven't seen it before, account sort of the rules of the voting, how we do the voting?
Oh, yeah. So if you haven't listened before, the way it works is that each episode, or each round, there are 4 rounds. We have most accurate, value for money, most entertaining, and player of the game. The first 3, so most accurate, value for money, most entertaining, if that game wins in that category, the person who bought it gets a point. Play of the game goes to the person who experienced that moment. So, although I'm fighting right now for Fobia, I think that should get a point, and that's where my vote would go on this. It wouldn't be me winning it; it would be Cerys getting a point because she bought the game originally, and that's how it works. And we do that each round. There isn't a limitation. You can vote for yourself. You can vote for the game you bought because you think it's right, but it doesn't really matter. It will come down to a point normally that two people are very adamant on their own game, and one person, like in this case, Darren, doesn't give a fuck about his game. So we'll vote for one of the other two to be the tiebreaker. Is how it normally falls.
We can vote for our own games.
Yeah,
it's just whatever we want to.
Whatever
we settle on.
Whatever we settle. I mean, you always end up going for want to vote for your own game to try and get your points. But by the same token, if it's not right and
you might not feel right about your game.
Yeah, which is why Fobia for me. I don't know where you're going, Cerys. It sounds like you're going for Dead Space.
I would be going for Dead Space. Yeah. I would love to vote for Fobia because I want the point, but I just I just loved it. I just thought it was.
It's just alright. This is most accurate, so and that's the thing. I'm going outside of loving it or anything like that. I just think it is a true survival horror, and I think it is through and through. And I've got the fortunate thing of playing both games. So, well, actually, all three games that we've got here. And I agree that Alan Wake don't get it. And I may have bought it just because I wanted to replay it.
It's good. It's alright. My vote is for Fobia.
Fair enough.
I sort of feel in the same way that you do, where I feel like from what I've heard about it, Dead Space is probably the better horror game.
Yeah,
but if we're going purely on the remit of the survival horror basis, then I think from what we've heard from all three of us, Fobia hits that the most straight on.
Yeah.
It has that management, it has that sort of crushing pressure, it has that sort of tension of
trying to get through a puzzle whilst you hear something behind you.
So I think Fobia should get it. Yeah.
Brilliant. All right,
Great.
so first point of the first season goes to Cerys. I wouldn't get used to it. Because next up is...
Remember, everyone, Paul won the first episode.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Paul won the first two episodes and then won nothing. So, next one is value for money.
Yeah, I ain't winning this one.
So, we'll start with Cerys, as we know she isn't winning this one. How much did you spend on a brand new PS5 title?
Oh, my God. Right, it was £25.
Which is probably, I think that's the most expensive game we've bought. I think
the highest before that, I think, was
Zelda Breath of the Wild.
How much was that?
And that was, I think, just over £15, or just under 20 it was.
If it's just under 20, it would be. I know Breath of the Wild, Destroy Humans, and Hades are all in that.
Yeah, Hades, £15 I think it was. Yeah. It was a really good deal. So £25 for Fobia.
Yes.
Length of game, to complete it once, is anywhere between 8 to 10 hours.
Okay.
Providing you aren't bugged out of things. But yes, 8 to 10 hours. So, and it's once you do it 3 sort of times, but really £25 for a 10-hour game is where that goes in. So it's not a great one for it. I bought Alan Wake for you, and I managed to get it for £11.98 on PS5, which I think was actually a real good steal for it.
It's not bad, yeah.
And it's not a particularly long game, I don't think. Is it about 12 hours?
About 12 hours. It's the 6 episodes. Each episode is about 2 hours, anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours. So, about sort of...
For £12, is it worth getting that game, would you say?
I think so, yeah. It's one of those ones, and I feel it's about a lot of games. I am glad that because I've been looking at it for a while to pick up, because I never played it originally, and I was curious about it, and I'd heard good things. I'm glad I didn't buy it at full price. Yeah. But if I'd seen it for £12, or I know it's come to me for £12, I think that's a good price for it. I think it's a lot of fun for that. I didn't say about this one, I don't think £25 is right for Fobia. If it was, again, about the £10 mark, £15 mark maybe, just because it's new, and it's always an independent sort of thing to go out. But £25 for a brand new game is actually a pretty good price. It's just... It's
maybe not for that specific game.
Not for the amount you get out of it.
Just saying, funnily enough, given our discussion on digital-only titles, if that was on the PlayStation Store for like a $12.99 digital, it's probably about right. Yeah, give it a burst. Yeah, that's what I'd say. And then Dead Space. What did you spend on Dead Space, Darren? I paid $5.95 for Dead Space.
Nice.
And how long is Dead Space to complete?
Dead Space, it takes anywhere between 10 to 14 hours, apparently, dependent on... the difficulty that you choose.
How hard it is,
How interesting that all games really are between a 10 to 15 hours completion, but then if we're looking at price-wise, clearly... that's the best price.
I do think that 10 to 15 hours is probably the right length for a horror game, especially a survival horror game, because that is about how long you can do it before it starts to wear thin.
Yes.
Where you're like, I'm not scared anymore. No. Like, I've learned it.
No.
Yeah.
No, so that's fair enough. So that means second point of the episode is going to go to Dead Space, which is a point to Darren.
Woohoo!
Cool. It's not looking good for me right now. But
poor Alan Wake.
You can only win. Losing is the same as everyone else. So the next category, which is a point which any of us could get for buying it, is most entertaining. So how entertaining was your game? I'm going to go first. Sorry, Cerys. Just because I don't think mine is going to be in the battle for it. But then again, it sounds like I don't know if Alan Wake will be either. Puzzles in this game are really good. Like, really fun, really enjoyable. I love a puzzle game in, like, the old Resi ones where it's like, you find... So, some of them are simply like you find a code on a wall and you're like, there's nowhere there, but you switch the camera up and then suddenly there's a safe there and you do this, you can open up an item which you then add to something else and you move around and it's like, good, there are 2 different zones you can look through. That's great. And it is fun, and moving around the hotel is interesting. There's a lot of fire and the little girl running around. The issue with this game, and you'll find it everywhere, is the combat is abhorrent. It is just horrible, and there are so many bugs. So I have started this game twice.
Okay.
The first time I restarted it is because I could not access my inventory anymore.
Oh, good.
For no good reason, just couldn't access it. So I had to restart the game. So I restarted the game. I was only about an hour and a bit into the game, so I was like, you know what, I'll restart it. The next time I got to the first boss, and I just had no ammo to kill the boss. I thought, this doesn't seem right. Started firing, doing it all. I went, all right, I'll look at a guide online. And apparently there's meant to be an ammo box where it refills during the fight. It just never appeared for me.
Okay.
So I couldn't physically beat the first boss.
Yeah.
So I went and watched most of the game anyway afterwards just to sort of see where it went. But the fact it's so buggy and problematic, I mean, that is a big drawback, and that the combat just doesn't feel good. I mean, it also was weird, there were these creatures you could shoot, and some of them would go down in 2 shots. If I hit them twice in the glowy bit or twice in the head, others I would hit exactly the same way, and it would take 7 rounds. And you're thinking, well, why is it being so finicky on that? So it just made the game far more frustrating than it should be. So I didn't think it was an entertaining game because it was a more frustrating game than entertaining.
Yeah.
So I do apologise, but Fobia, I think, is out of the discussion for most entertaining, so I do apologise.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
That's fair.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a point for me. Doubt it.
I'll chat about Alan. As I said when I began, I have mixed feelings on this game. I think one of the notes I wrote is that I'm not mad at this game, I'm just disappointed. Because there's so many, elements to it that if they were done, 10% better, this game would be so much better.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned the combat in Fobia, because the combat in this is wank as well.
It's weird. In my mind, I remember it being really good combat, interesting, but it obviously isn't.
The problem I have with the combat is, as I said before, the combat is you have anywhere from 1 to 10 enemies in front of you, and you need to shine a light on them of some description. So you have your torch, you have flares, and then you have more light weapons. But the idea is you shine a torch on them until they become
impervious.
Solid is the word I'd use. And then you can shoot them. And then you have your other ones like flashbangs and a flare gun, which can just kill them outright. You basically light them out of existence. The problem is, when there's few enemies, it's tedious. And when there's a lot of enemies, it's frustrating.
Right.
Because the base enemies all have hatchets are basically their default weapon, and they throw them at you with the accuracy of military snipers. So there'll be a man stood in a bush a mile away, and I'll be fighting someone. I'll just get clocked by an axe. Oh, good. Because there's a dodge function in it, you're meant to dodge out of the way, and it gives you a slow-mo dodge. But if you can't see them, and the game has no indicators of stuff behind you or around you.
Right.
And that's my biggest complaint with the combat, honestly, is that you can just get swarmed really easily, and the game gives you no information about what's happening.
How is the soundscape on it then? I mean, I'm not trying to... I'm not going, idiot, you should know better. So I don't know if they're not very good with the soundscape. You don't hear the things coming behind you as well to a degree.
There's a lot of noise, but not a lot of indication of what direction that noise is coming from.
Right, okay.
So I can hear a lot of enemies, but I just assume it's the 2 enemies in front of me. And then I get punched in the back. You
shouldn't have to play a game with 3D audio on headsets to be able to play the game in an appropriate way.
Yeah. The game also I think it has fixed spawns for enemies.
Right.
Which, because I'm sprinting through it, led to a lot of funny moments where it does, as I said, the dramatic zoom out, and the enemy is up my ass. Like, he could have given me, like, a medical inspection before I even fucking knew he was there, and the game's like, oh, the enemy! Like,
Alan,
why didn't you tell me?
Inspector.
Yeah, why didn't you tell me this, like, a minute ago, when that would have been helpful information? There was one where I think it thinks you're meant to be stood still, so I was reversing, and then it went, oh, he's behind you! And then I did it again, but didn't move, and he spawned, like, off in a corner somewhere, and came to me. I just walked into his spawn.
So far, so very entertaining so far.
Yeah. The other problem, we talked about, I said I'd come back to The Shining.
Yeah.
This game is very fucking pleased with itself.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And it's sort of in two parts. Sometimes it does it quite subtly. Like, my favourite joke is that the FBI agent who doesn't like you keeps calling you other writers' names, and he changes the writer he says every time. And it's pretty funny. Every time he says that, I'm like, oh, good. And, like, there's a radio presenter you go to see called Pat Main, who is the spitting image of Stephen King. And I thought that was pretty funny. Then there's other times, the one I didn't like is a Shining thing, where in chapter 1 you're being chased by a guy with a big fucking axe, and you run into like a little shack, and you hide next to the door, and he puts the axe through the door, and it's fucking like pixel for pixel, the bit in The Shining.
Right.
Where she's in the bathroom, he goes through the door.
Yeah.
And you're watching it and you go, well, that's really clever. Like, it's a fun little homage to like the Stephen King sort of roots. And this fucking voiceover is like, I had to get out of here before he got me, like Nicholson in The Shining. I'm like, what? I got it. Yeah. Don't worry.
I mean,
you don't need to fucking tell me a reference. I got it. But it does a lot of that. Like, it's very... I've been clever with my writing, and you need to know I've been clever with my writing, so you can praise me for being clever with my writing.
Let me beat you over the head with
like,
how clever
shut
I
the fuck
am.
up. I don't like you.
It's whether you take it as you've done it there, or it's them going, look, it's all homage, and look how fucking pulpy this writer is. He's not very good. It's like, which one is it meant to be? Is he meant to be bad writer who thinks he's actually really good? Or are we just thinking we're better than... I
think he is meant to be good because he's been on like this big successful book tour and everyone loves his writing.
Right.
And there's a scene in the last episode, because I played a little bit of it, where you have to stop and watch a TV interview of him on like a Conan O'Brien style show, which is live action. And the guy playing Alan is clearly the guy they've used for like facial capture for Alan in the game. It's the most fucking uncanny valley shit I've ever experienced. When you're being made to watch a TV interview of a guy who is clearly you, but the real human. You're like, and you can't progress. You have to stand there and watch the entire fucking interview.
Oh my god!
But it's overall like it's fun. Is the problem. Like, the core gameplay isn't too bad other than the combat. A part of me wishes it was like. It was a walking sim. It was like a sort of a Gone Home and Edith Fincher, Layers of Fear type thing. Because the atmosphere it builds is superb. Yeah. It builds such good tension, and again, I'll get to this in a second, like the play of the game. But there are bits of it where it's genuinely like kind a little bit scary, where you're like, fucking hell, this is actually going for it now. But most of it is just, it's not great.
It's when you talk about the voiceover, it almost feels like an old noir film. Like, and so I knew the dame was at the door, and
it's exactly like that. And half the time it's all right, and half the time it's a bit obnoxious because you're like, I get what they're going for, and I respect what they're going for, and it is that sort of thing you say. Like, he is narrating it, and part of that is into the story. That's a bit of spoilery territory. I'll go for it.
Yeah,
spoilers for Alan Wake, everyone.
I think that's fair at the top of this episode. We should already say spoilers for all of these games because it's very much could happen.
Part of basically what's happening is the events of you've come away to Bright Falls for the Writers' Retreat, and part of the entire like shit that's going down is basically Alan's story.
Right.
So the story that he has written, or he was forced to write by the Dark Presence, is now happening in real time. Right. And it's been written out in such a way that everyone dies and things go to shit. And that is quite a cool moment later on where you learn that he worked out this was happening and then wrote himself in as the main character, and that's then you playing the game.
Right, okay.
And then there's a moment where like you're following the footsteps of a writer who came before you, and he also wrote in that cabin, and he's written your life. And I haven't got to that yet, what that means.
So you're hoping for a nice big reveal at the end.
So like I'm saying, the story's cool, and a lot of the stuff it does with the story is cool, and the atmosphere and the pacing, and a lot of that is really good. It's just, I wish it's almost the opposite problem I have with Breath of the Wild. But Breath of the Wild is a good base game with a not good game on top of it. Yeah. And Alan Wake is the opposite, where all the writing and all the atmosphere and all the tension and all the world building is superb, but the game under that falls a bit flat. It's a bit clunky. He has the sprint of a 72-year-old man.
Yes, he does.
I don't know what that's about.
He's a writer.
He looks like he's in decent shape, though.
Yeah, but he's a writer. He just sits down writing in cabins all day.
His fat agent can run better than he can.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really respect what it's going for, and I think in 2010, I imagine this was class.
Yeah,
but it's not...
It's not held up as well.
No, it's not come around to modern gaming as well.
I think Remedy have really improved the Control.
Control is amazing.
Control's amazing gameplay. Yeah, and that's
if this played like Control, it would. It could have won this episode. Maybe
it still might.
There's still time.
There's still time. So we'll move across to Dead Space then. Most entertaining. Is it entertaining?
Yes.
Do you know what? Yeah, it is. It is entertaining. I think, with all due respect to this game, at some points, and this is probably just because I'm a giant puss, right? But sometimes I found this game too scary to be entertaining. So, for example, and this may be kind of like a cumulative thing, because obviously when I started doing this podcast was around the same time as my birthday as well, and you very lovingly got me a PS5 and some new games and stuff.
Yeah, by you, she means Josh, because I am a really nice man. Not everyone can see you pointing.
Oh, yeah, apologies.
I pitched in a very notable £0. I pitched in
value for money, I think that is, Darren.
I got praise on this podcast without doing a fucking thing. Hell yeah.
But so it meant that, I mean, I'm probably about halfway through this game now. I haven't finished it. I haven't given it a lot of time because I've been distracted by other things. However, there have been times where I've thought, yeah, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to play Dead Space now. And then I've made excuses like, well, it's 8 p.m. now. It's a bit late for me. It's been playing Dead Space. So it is entertaining. When you're playing it, I really enjoy it. But it's one of those games where, because of how scary it is, it actually took me a little, I almost had to hype myself up to play it and be like, now I'm going to sit down and do this, instead of going and playing some, like God of War, for example, which I've been playing through recently, which is a game that I find myself wanting to play.
I think it's unfair to compare anything to God of War, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. When you're actually playing it, it's got, it is entertaining in that it is just shit scary.
I don't want to step on, I don't know if it's going to be part of your play of the game, but I think it's got one of the best interfaces I've ever seen on your back, the health on the back of the thing.
Incredible.
So cool.
Absolutely amazing. It's got features like that, like the health being on your back there is just like a feature that really kind of blew me away, actually, when I first saw it, because I was like, this is just cool. It's just got so many cool bits to it that you look around it and you think, of course it's entertaining. Number one, you're in space, okay? Space is always entertaining. Yeah. Number two, they're necromorphs, but let's be honest, they're aliens. So, again, entertaining.
And dismembering.
Always entertaining.
What I'm hearing is that it does stand up to its title, that it has space and dead things.
And dead things, yes. There are parts of it that I feel, only because maybe of the age of it, it hasn't aged well in certain respects. Like, the zero gravity parts piss me off to no end. It is just it's like just hard to control. It is just nuts. And, you're trying to go on one wall and it's like, well, no, we're not going to go over there. And, it's some parts of it I think haven't aged well and are quite clunky. But entertaining, yeah.
I just want to bring up something about Alan Wake that I forgot, but I think you'll find funny.
Go for it, yeah.
I thought I was going to come in with a similar complaint about there's this set piece bit, and I don't know if they've just fucked it in the remake, but it seems impossible. It seems like everyone just sees you too quickly. Everything just goes to shit instantly. And I was running the wrong way. I was convinced you're meant to sneak past them and you're just meant to run away from them. It took me 4 attempts. I looked at the mini map and saw the dot going the other way and went, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Good.
It's clean HUD on Dead Space. I mean, the ammo is on the guns. You can physically. I think it's a very well presented game. It's entertaining, but you've been filled with dread to go back to it, which is not what you want to hear in a game either.
It's one of those ones where I think it's kind of like, you know, going to visit your family in a way, and that, like, no offense, mom and dad. When you think about playing it, it's like, oh my god, do I really want to do this? And then when you're actually playing it, it's like, yeah, this is fun, this is cool, but it's just fucking scary. It just is.
Well, that's interesting.
It's a real fucking deadlock of a category. So I don't know.
Phobia will take it by...
We'll split the middle.
So what are you guys going for then, is the question? What do you think is the most entertaining game that's been discussed?
From what I have heard, basically because I think it's entertaining, even though it's in a way that it's not supposed to be, I'm going to give the point to Alan Wake.
Okay.
I think the things that you've told me are so unintentionally funny that I'm going to give it to you.
I am going to give the point to Dead Space. Not because I bought it, but because you made the point that, like, you were scared to go back to it. It sort of worked a bit to go back to it. When you were in it, you were like, oh, this is great. Yeah. I had to work myself up to play Alan Wake, and then I was in it, I went, I don't want to be playing this. Like, it's the case of, if it wasn't for the podcast, if I wasn't thinking, like, I want to play as much of this so I can have an informed view, I probably would have quit this game after chapter 2.
That is how I was with Fobia. I didn't want to play it. I played it. I hated it, and then it gave me. I was like, nah, I'm not going back.
Respect to Alan Wake, it did pick up.
But that's it. I think it's a slow burn. But it sounds like it's two different sorts of entertainment. It's whether you want to be going in there for Dead Space and just everything's running as crazy as non-stop. I'm in this thing. Whilst Alan Wake is, do you want that slow burn? Alan Wake is for the people who would rather, you know, they're going to go, I'm going to watch a David Lynch film now. And then you got people who are going, oh no, I'd like Michael Bay today with Dead Space. I know they're not what they are, but it's like, I want popcorn fun with one, and the other one is, I want highbrow entertainment. You know, it's two different levels.
It's like if you're trying to transition from one form of entertainment into the other. And it's like, they often say you're trying to make, like, a game, but they'd rather make a movie, or they're trying to make a game, they'd rather make the book. And it feels like the divide.
And then Phobia feels like you're having trail mix, but some of them are screws.
Oh, good.
So it's not
all of them, though.
No, that's what I mean. The puzzles were lovely. So it's me as a deciding vote, and it's frustrating because I want to give Alan Wake the point because I want a point. And I loved Alan Wake, and I love Dead Space, but I think really entertainment, which is weird because it's the person who played it isn't going for their own game. But I'm going to go for Dead Space. I think Dead Space probably is the most entertaining, like, just classically entertaining. I mean, not always the case. Like, you know, we've played other ones where I've gone, Akami is the most entertaining because of what it does. But I think there is nothing in Dead Space where you go, well, that was a slog, or that was a chore. It's just go, God, that was rough. But you know what? I'm going to have a story out of this. Rather than Alan Wake goes, this is a story. But God, I don't want to read it. So I think it's going to go to Dead Space. So Dead Space is 2 points.
I've secured point.
Well, yeah, you are. You definitely could. You either are going to win on your own
or tie.
It
took me till episode 4 to do this last time.
Yeah, so not bad. I am definitely not winning this episode though. That's all I know for sure. So should we move into the final category, which is play of the game? The moment you found most exciting or entertaining or just enjoyable in general. I'm going to go at the end this time because I keep starting.
I'll go. Since I have my point, I'll get mine out of the way, and then you two can just scrap.
No, we can't.
So as I said, my feelings towards this game is that the first 3 chapters are a bit of a slog, and then starting to pick up in chapter 4. And my play of the game is the start of chapter 4. Basically, you end chapter 3. You've been, and you wake up in chapter 4, and you're in a asylum. You're in it's technically a mental asylum. It's like the country equivalent of that, where you're in a lovely lake house, but all the doors are locked.
Right.
And
you're
being walked around by the doctor who's telling you that your wife is super dead and that you should just forget about her and move on and just write your stuff. We've left your typewriter in the room so you can write. He's very clearly a bit dodge. You've known this because you punch him in the face earlier in the game because he's a bit dodge. But you spend this first bit just sort of wandering around in the house trying to work out what the fuck's going on. And then things start to get fucky.
Yeah.
You meet two guys who lived on a farm together. They were also in a Viking death metal band, and they've changed their names to Viking names to better represent that. And when they were talking to me, I'm like, this is fucking stupid. Why am I talking to these people? There's no point to me talking to these people. There is a point to me talking to these people. But then basically the dark presence enters the building and starts to tear it the fuck apart. So it's pulling lights down, it's pulling shit out. There's a bit where there's a light fixture, which is a massive metal ball, and you have to get it to attack you through a door so you can get through the door. Which is quite a cool little puzzle. You have to guide it around the room. And then you get out of that, and the only way that you can get to your agent, Barry, is through a hedge maze. This is the point where it delivered on its sort of scares. Right. Because it's such a confined area. And the thing I complained about before is you could accidentally run into an enemy spawn, or it would like spin the camera around like 150 degrees and be like, look, they're 2 miles away. Right. But this is, you'd be walking around this fucking hedge maze and you'll go round a corner and the music sting will hit and there'll be a dude like 2 feet in front of you. Right. Like, well, fuck me, I guess I'll die. And then you're sort of backing away into hedges with the torch and shit. And then you eventually get through there. That is the scariest point it is. And you end up on the farm of the two Viking guys. Yes. Turns out they've built a fucking stage on their farm, and the centerpiece of the stage is a fire-breathing dragon. And you have what's basically a fucking standoff against the enemies, against the people taken. They're called the Taken by the darkness. And you have to fight them off while your agent's trying to get the lights to turn on. So you can guide them like under the fire of the dragon head and into the lights.
I'm changing my mind. Dead Space isn't with most entertaining now. This is definitely Alan Wake getting
this is 1 hour of an 8-hour fucking slog. This is what I said. This felt like the person actually writing it walked away and like their 10-year-old kid changed the keyboard and went, and then there was a maze, and then there was a death metal stage, and then they shooed him away before they wrote the next chapter. Because it was like Whiplash, like, what the fuck? This game's awesome. And then I did the next time, I'm like, oh no, that was the weirdest fucking blip I've ever seen.
It's almost like you're in a mental asylum.
Yeah. But it's like, it felt like the point the game delivered on what it was trying to be all along, where it'd been done with its plodding, it'd been done with its setting up, and it went, alright, let's stop fucking around now. Here we go. And it's just adrenaline, action, a death metal stage with a dragon on it. It's just cool.
Sounds great. Yeah. I think it's going to be hard to top that. Most entertainment moment in this game, turning it off. No, Fobia, I think there was little bits where I was looking through doors, just trying to open them. They like, want to open on a chain. And I was like, no, it's not. I was trying to look around, try and see something. And then the little girl with the gas mask appeared right in front of me in the chain, which made me jump a little bit. I was like, oh, that's cool. But really, the best bit is what I've already said. It was like the opening bit where I was running from that guy and I felt genuine fear. Yeah. I don't know if I didn't do enough of this game, but the game wouldn't let me do more of it to give me a moment. So it sort of shot itself in the foot. But yeah, I could tell that they loved it. I just don't think there was a moment that made me go, oh, that's really that was really fun. That was really entertaining. At no point have I gone, oh, that was great. I want to see that again. I just went, nothing. And it's a shame. So although it sounds like I've just crapped all over Fobia, it's nice to see an independent company try and make it. And some people online really love it. It's got like 9 stars and it's 9 out of 10 on Steam and a few other things. It just did nothing for me, and it was too buggy for me to complete it. So unfortunately, I've not given it anything better than that. The bosses are pretty fun to look at when you look at the bosses, but again, it's not a moment for me. I do apologise. That's all I've got. That's all I've got for the game. Yeah. It was there. I played it.
It was there.
It existed.
It existed. So at the moment, Alan Wake is point for most entertaining. Can you get like play of the game? Can you do anything with the play of the game for yourself?
Yes.
Try and tie the episode.
There is a standout moment for me in what I've played so far. In that it is one of 2 games that has filled me with such a sense of dread in a moment that I felt physically sick. There's only another game that's ever done that, and it's Resi 7 when in the first bit where you are running away from Jack and you have no weapon and nowhere to go.
Wasn't the scariest bit for me.
No. This bit,
Marguerite.
I hate Marguerite.
I've got a you got a real thing about Marguerite.
I don't like her. The one point in that game,
She's the
scariest point in that game is when she jumps through the window.
Oh yeah.
And I fucking walked away from the game for a bit.
Well, this was that moment for me. I did actually after this encounter, put it down and be like, no, that's enough
I think
for
I
today.
heard this moment from the other rooms. I heard the physical scream.
This was not that part because I was so scared that I physically went, like, I just froze and I was like, oh God, okay. So there was a rare bit of kind of quiet in the moments before this where I had been trying to get to what is essentially quite an open area. And immediately when you see the big open area in Dead Space, you were like, oh, good, I'm gonna die. Okay. So I'd been going through these little kind of corridors with the vents and stuff. There had been like no real jump scares for a while and been suspiciously quiet. And I was kind of like, okay, this is all right. You kind of get a false sense of security a little bit. You go into this big area, immediately think, oh God, okay. And essentially you just go to press a button so that the tram system comes back up. And you press this button and you turn around and there are obviously like necromorphs pretty much everywhere. And you kill a couple of them off and you think, okay, that's fine. And out of the back of the room comes what I can only describe as a fucking fat boy, right? So he comes out and he's got this big bulging belly and you have to dismember him. But if at any point you accidentally hit this motherfucker's stomach, it opens up to all of these little spider babies, okay, that just come running towards you. Oh. And it is horrific because you're trying then to shoot the floor because there's these things crawling towards you really quick, but you don't have the ammo to be able to shoot all of these things on the floor.
Yeah.
So you die. I died multiple times with this thing because I think I managed in the end, and even then I died because I managed to dismember him without hitting the stomach. And I was like, okay, that's the key. I never managed to do it again. I did end up killing all the things on the floor. I don't even remember how I did it. I think it was blind panic and crying and shitting and throwing up while I was doing it. It was horrifying. The dread I felt in the pit of my stomach when these things started crawling out of the thing's stomach and the thing was still moving towards me, not at a pace. The little things fucking were.
Right.
It was just horrifying. And I remember having gotten through that part and I put the controller down and I thought, yep, that's fucking enough for today.
My automatic reaction to that story was the same way like a cat gets its back up and it's trying. You said like the spider stuff. No,
it was a hackle moment.
I don't like that.
And the thing is, I think what really set it up is that it was not long after I'd seen the spider things as a new enemy, probably just before it. And I remember thinking, but there were only like 3 or 4 of them, and that was enough. So I was like, okay, these are hard to kill. To then see a good, what I can only think is approximately 40 of them come out of this thing's stomach because I fucked up. Oh my God. Just, and bear in mind that they are not the only things in the room. There are other necromorphs that also want to kill you. Yep. So it's very chaotic and horrifying and gross, and it should be illegal.
So Fobia wins by default.
Yeah, I think Fobia wins. By just not being entertaining. Perfect. Either of you, are you willing to default on what you think most entertaining is, or do you think your thing is most entertaining, like play the game?
I want to vote for Cerys's.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm going to vote for my own.
Well, then, it doesn't matter what I vote. Yeah. So Cerys is getting that, which is 2 points.
I just want to rationalise why I'm voting for Cerys's. I think that my play of the game, while it is awesome...
It's long.
It is long. It's also the really cool, like, Viking death metal stage bit is also the point where the game is the least Alan Wake gets. Whereas your one is like Dead Space being
Dead Space,
the most Dead Space
Yeah.
of like this body horror, dismemberment sort of
I
thing.
genuinely think that you get that. It's. I mean, that means you both get a point and you both win the episode, which is how I think Darren actually wanted to vote. Darren just wanted to make sure that I'm in last
I
place.
wanted to vote for myself, so I got the point alone and got to feel good about myself, but I couldn't do it.
No, I think it's fine, and that means you both can get a point for this first episode.
Hooray.
And the only thing we can take away from this is that if Fobia somehow ends up in the vault, everyone listening is wrong.
We'll end the podcast.
We'll
delete all the episodes and we'll just call it a day. Because clearly that's not the listener base we want to engage with.
But yeah, so Dead Space and Alan Wake did all right in the overall. It's just not a time for Fobia. But cool. Great.
Yeah.
Well done, you guys.
Good stuff.
I hate you both. Next episode, I'm coming back stronger and I'm going to beat you all. But to know what that is and what I need to be buying, we'll have to turn to our random genre generator.
I like every time we do that, we put on a slightly different accent and a slightly different strength of accent.
Yes.
And we just see how it comes out.
I've already tried Swedish today. It's not gone well. So,
The random genre generator, conveniently located in the Netherrealm.
so Darren, do you want to...
Our topic for next episode is fight.
Fight!
Fight.
Michael Combat? Michael Combat. Mortal Kombat. Fight. What an absolute nightmare that was.
Wow.
Michael Combat.
So not like fighting or like anything more specific, just fight.
Just fight.
So it could
Fight.
be literally anything.
Anything.
Yeah. Find a character called Fight. That would do.
Oh, that would do.
Yeah.
Or Johnny Fist.
If it's a
something
fighting
like
game, it's a game with a lot of fighting.
that.
My brain didn't process that. At the end of the sentence. We're like, oh, great.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of open things that I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that I'm going to look at right now. Fighting games seems like the obvious one to go for,
Yeah.
but whether it's going to be
Like
a little bit more
interesting
nuanced
stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Weirder stuff to go for.
we'll have to have a little look. And again, it's going to be the same consoles we always use.
Mm-hmm.
A few other things before we round off this episode. I'm looking forward to doing Fight because it gives me a reason to actually win. But also, before we go off, I'm also going to be on another podcast this week.
Traitor.
I know. It's going to be over with the boys at Cast Me to Hell. We're going to be discussing the new Halloween movie and Halloween in general, which I love. The time and the films, not all the films. So if you want to hear a bit more about that, go check them out. Cast Me to Hell or CMTH.
There you go. Spelling's
podcast.
hard, guys.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to put two M's in there. I was like, cast me to hell. But yeah, they're great boys. They've got a lot of things about there. So if you like horror films, check out that discussion. Is there anything else we need to say before we head off? Nothing apart from check out our socials.
Yeah, that's it.
So DiscCount Pod, DiscCount Darren, DiscCount Josh, DiscCount Cerys, all on Instagram. If you want to check out YouTube, we'll hopefully have this episode up when this comes out on all our other platforms. And as always, if you can subscribe, leave a review, anything like that, it
Tell
will
your friends.
Remember as well that it's discount with 2 C's.
Yes,
Yeah.
DiscCount. But yeah, that's basically what we're looking for. And next episode, we won't be discussing our fight one. It will be our freebies, free talk, whatever.
Free
What have you
play.
been doing?
We haven't done, which we'll be talking about the games that have come out in October for PlayStation and working out what our favourite ones we want to talk about, etc., etc. So hopefully you'll be along for that episode. Make sure to check out, again, the socials, because we will be voting on what should go in the vault. And also we might be opening up for you guys to give us some more suggestions to stick into our random genre generator.
We'd love to have more. We have weird ones left.
We have some strange ones left.
It's strange enough that Fight came out, because Fight might be the most normal one.
Perfect. That's what we want to hear. So thank you for joining in again. Thank you for being our player floor.
Our player floor.
Are you okay?
I don't know. I haven't slept.
That's a comment, not on position, but the quality we believe you represent.
No. Don't listen to Darren. Darren's a bad man.
Darren wins, though.
In the bin with Darren, the bargain bin. Yeah. Thank you for being our player 4.
There you go.
And then, we'll join us next time. Hopefully we'll have some more news, some exciting things in the pipeline. But yeah, great. I'm happy.
Awesome.
Everyone else happy? Anything else you want to say?
Phobia is a bad game.
Fobia is a bad game.
That's what we should take away.
Oh, wow.
Catch you next time.